Hey, this is Louis D. Fresh bringing it to you on a Thursday afternoon. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to follow up on a cold front, a fish story, part 2, because I told you about the struggles I went through in the cold front in Christmas time around December 24th, 25th. Look back on my archives to explain, the calendar and all that stuff. And so we had another bad cold front in the beginning of January. And I wanted to make sure I was ready for it. But before I get into that, I wanted to share one more quick observation that I had that I didn't mention in Cold Front Fish Story Part 1. And that was after the cold front, the afterwards, not during, after. The fish were kind of skittish. I only had two sets of, if you recall on my archives, two big sets of plants, anacris, two big bunches, one to the left and one to the right. And I thought that would be good because this way I give the fish more room to swim, and that was my thinking. But I had noticed that they were anxious. Example, real life example, my example. Back at the tail end of August, I had gotten into a fender bender in outside of the complex where I live. And what took place was every time now that, because I'm a cautious driver, right? But after that accident and that particular spot where I make that left, get out of my complex, I can't lie. I go extra slow and I check the second and third time because of skittish about what happened that time. Same thing happened here with the fish. Fishonalities. Look back on my archives, you'll see fishonalities. And I apologize for my neighbor's dog barking because they hears my voice and the dog is outside. And this is a really ideal time for me to do this, so that's why I'm doing it. So please excuse the barking. So in the fishonalities, I mentioned looking and observing your fish and what they do and how they act and what they do. And so the same thing I noticed after the cold front, I noticed they were really skittish, really scared, and they were worried about when the next catastrophe was going to happen, the next cold blast. And so I'm telling you that because towards the end of the video, I'll explain what I did to kind of fix that issue as well. So what did I do? I'm using my hand a little bit more. What did I do? What I did was I noticed, I'm not an electrician, but I did notice that the wattage of the heaters I was using was good for the fish tanks up to certain gallons. So the fish tanks behind me are 75 gallons. I use heaters that were good up to 80 gallons, right? And you think it should have worked just fine. The issue is you have to know your environment and know what you're dealing with. I have my fish tanks outside, and short version of a long story, why I have my fish outside is because my wife doesn't like them inside. I get it, because 95% of the time it's great, it's nice and neat as you see right there, but that 5% of the time, it's not neat. And what happens is, when you're cleaning the water will drip and splash. It will. And the same thing when you're changing their diaper, also known as their filter, it gets nasty. You're cleaning their poop. You really are. So I get it why my wife wants the fish outside and the turtles outside. I get it. So I did not take into account that the fish and the turtles were outside. And I thought the heater was fine. And the heater was up to 300 watts. And the problem was that it was perfect if it was in an indoor environment where the temperature at best will get down to about 60 Fahrenheit in your house. At best. In this case, the temperature went down to the 40s Fahrenheit and it stayed there. So I needed a stronger wattage. That was resolution number 1 in the fish story, cold front fish story part 2. Change the wattage. I didn't know what the heck a wattage was, but I did know that if I were to change it and make it higher, it would be better. So I went onto Amazon. I found wattage up to 600 watts and it worked. Hold on. It's kind of hard to see here with the glare, but you'll see, and again, you see how nice and clean the glass is due to the vinegar. Look back on my archives and social media, and you'll see what I'm talking about. That is a 600 watt heater that's there, 600 watts. And the same old thing over here. I got a 600 watt heater here, and it's also, you notice that if you can see it, you'll see that the temperature is there, and what it's set to is set to 78. And the same thing down here in my mini pond here. I got a new heater. You really may not be able to see it, but it's oh yeah, there it is. You see that gray thing? That's the heater. And I haven't spoken about this tank yet. I'm gonna put it in a nano tank. Hold on one second. In a nano tank playlist, but I have a history on this, and right now it's an Ember tank, Ember Tetra fish tank. I don't want to get into it right now, but I'm just showing it to you. But I will make a playlist because I want to get another nano tank. And if you follow other fish, freshwater fish people, I can't speak for saltwater fish, but I'm speaking louder because of the dog. The freshwater fish people, we always are always tweaking something to our quote unquote fish rooms. I'm telling you, Google it on the search engine there for YouTube. You will see freshwater people, our freshwater fish people are always tampering and adding or subtracting or modifying something. So I am going to add another nano tank, but it'll be upstairs in my home office. But that's just a little preview. And also with the cold front, this particular tank went without using profanity. And all my cherry barbs, look at my archives. I had to change this tank. It is no longer a cherry barb tank. Rather, it is a shrimp tank. Special guest, these panda garras, which I'll do a video on them one day as a species Sunday. But I had to change it around, and also I did get a heater. You see the heater there. I changed my chair around here different. That's the plant that I put also on my social media this past week on Tuesday actually. That's the big old plant that actually is in front of my fish tank. Because of the birds over there, right? Oh, you see all the birds. You may hear them. There are lots of hawks and all kinds of stuff flying around. And if you think, oh, that's ridiculous, I had to put a little plant here in front of my mini pond because the ducks had gone into it. And I put it in that particular spot because the ducks were starting to go in there and went fishing, as Kali is fishing around for lizards right now. So continuing with my video. That was part one. I changed the wattage from 300 to 600 watts. That's why if you look at the thumbnail, you see a little on the left hand side. I put 600 and a little heater there. And there's another thing about the heater. If you pay attention to that thumbnail, it's not up and down. Remember I mentioned. Well, let's show it. You remember in part one, I mentioned how I put the heater here and it went up and down. Because I remember I told you that's how it always was. That's how the heaters were made. And I told you it's because I had my electrical system in this box. I have it in this box because of the rain and the wind and all that stuff. So I thought it was only natural to have it here. I figure while I'm standing. But I found out that you have to do a little research. You just can't say, well, it's always been done that way. So I did some research on aquarium heaters on YouTube. And I found out something interesting, which is the second modification that I did. Not only with the wattage increase, again with the mini pond, I went from 25 watts to 100 watts to my little nano tank down here that I'm right underneath. I went from 10 to 100 watts, and my 20-gallon shrimp tank now went from 100 watts to 200 watts. So everything, the wattage went up. That was the first modification that I did. Second modification that I found out through YouTube is the positioning of your heater. I found that wherever your flow is, or wherever your bubbles are, or wherever the most activity, I'm going to stay from right here. That's where your heater should go. Wherever there's more water flow than anything else. You see my heater, right? And you notice it's not up and down. It is across. And because I saw on a YouTube video that if your heater is across, therefore the blast of heat will go horizontal and not vertically. So therefore you will maximize the output of that heater. And you see I did the same over here with the turtles. with the turtles here, turtles. I maximize the output. The same thing down here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I did it horizontally. And you'll see over here, also my heater is horizontal. And I don't feel like putting it on pause. And you'll see over here, the heater is horizontal. And you notice as well, there's a shrimp right there, that I put it as close as I could to the flow of water. That is really, really important. So with that said, the increase in wattage, the positioning of the heater, not closer to wherever your bubbles or your water flow is, and the keeping it horizontal to maximize the heat output. Now, the last thing, and there's two more things, I apologize. The last thing, the next to last thing, was that I wanted to handle that issue with the skittishness of, as I cross my legs, I'm being all comfortable here, the skittishness of the fish, and I'm like, what's going on? Again, use YouTube for the best of your ability. I had noticed that a lot of these planted tanks, and we're going to talk about fish, and we're talking about this, we're going to talk with more sophisticated terminology. When you have natural plants, which I believe is the way to go. This is 2023. You need natural plants. You can't be using plastic plants. That's a thing of the past. The natural plants in a tank, it's called a planted tank. And also, if you're really getting fancy on how you want your rocks or driftwood or your plants to go, and you design them in a certain way, that is called aquascaping. So now you have two words, planted tank and aquascaping. So my planted tank was aquascaped in such a way that now the fishermen felt more comfortable. Why? Because now they had more places to hide out. And then I could buy more fish. And then they had realized that now they felt more comfortable. And that solved my issue. And I want to give a big shout out to Dustin's Fish Tanks, or Dustin's Planted Tanks. I think the man is amazing. He was the one that really got me into all this. You can do a YouTube video, however you want to do it. He is just so crazy. I love him. He's out of Kentucky. Follow him, Dusted Tanks, or Dusted Planted Tanks, or Dustin's Fish Tanks. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he is phenomenal. And he sells plants. These were the plants that I got from him, actually. These over here, I absolutely love them. These over here, you see them over there. They're really, really quite beautiful. I really can't say enough about the man. And you'll notice I still have my Anacris. My Anacris is still there, but I added some Amazon swords, some Italian Val over here, some Amazon swords. And if you look now, the tank is a lot more complete and more full. And I want you to even notice from up here, you'll notice that the fish are a lot less skittish. They're not as afraid of anything. You see that they're all out and about using the entire tank, and you notice that they're swimming normally. I really want you to take a look at that. They're not losing their minds. So that really helped with the cold front, where they felt much more at ease, much more comfortable. And that really has made a world of difference. The last thing that I want to share with you that didn't work, but I tried it. I know the neighborhood fish farm here in South Florida. They always cover their tanks especially when it's cold, primarily, and they also cover them for the birds. But they cover them, and with like a thick fish net, right? So I thought, you know what? Let me do that. Let me do the same. So I covered my tanks, and when it was 40 degrees, with garbage bags, with plastic garbage bags. And it did help with the evaporation of the water. But to be honest, if you notice, hold on. Notice, I'm going to stand up because I figure we'll do this right. You'll notice here with the turtles, I have a screen cover. And primarily the screen cover is just in case they get any bright ideas of kind of getting up here and pushing this out, because they're not silly. They know. So that's why I have the screen cover. So I didn't put a plastic bag over here, but I put plastic bags here, and you can see right here, I still have some tape marks, and I can't get that tape off. I'm not gonna mess with it. You'll see some tape marks over here, and honestly, that didn't work at all, and it didn't. In other words, the temperature here was the same as it was here. So that did not make an impact at all. But thankfully, there was no need to worry about that, because the increased wattage, number one, the positioning of the heater, continuing with that, the positioning of the heater by the flow of the water, and also adding plants to the tank and everything. I added plants to all the tanks. Helped make the fish feel more at ease, and everybody made it through the cold front. This is Louis D. Fresh.